we'll get started in a second, guys. All right. Let's get it started. So welcome back. I know it's been a minute. Took a couple weeks off. Hopefully everybody's been good. But we're back at it, and hopefully we won't have no more breaks. All right. So if you're new here, welcome to the stream. What we do here is we do a Bible study every Sunday. Prime time hours, prime time X. I do it on like Facebook, YouTube, and then here on Twitch at the same time. Let's see something real quick. There's some of the social medias if you want to follow it: Twitter, Instagram. Today we're going to be doing chapter 19 and 20. It's going to be talking about marriage and divorce. Some really good explanations from Jesus about like the rich young ruler, workers in a vineyard, but it has to do with pretty much has to do with like God's grace, which I think is like it's really good. It really explains what God's grace is more in detail, and it'll help us as individuals and our perspectives on how we see things. And you'll see what I'm saying, because it is. Some people would almost think it's unfair, but at the same time, once you understand it, it's more like you're just battling envy and like jealousy in a way. And Jesus talks about his death for the first time to his disciples. And then ambition of James and John, which is two of the disciples. That's pretty good too. Kind of goes along with the envy and jealousy thing, but also with the disciples. You'll see. So let's get it started. I'm going to bring it up on the screen for you guys. So we use the King James Version of the Bible. So I don't know if you have one or not, but it's up on the screen for you guys. I'll try my best to keep up with it so you guys can follow along. Now, we don't read everything word for word. Not always. What I do is I've already read this either like sometime during the week. I read it earlier today. So I make highlights of key areas and stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right. So here in Matthew chapter 19, this is about marriage and divorce, okay? A lot of people, this is like a pretty important topic, because a lot of people have different viewpoints on it, and it gets really misinterpreted a lot. So people just like get it mixed up and like the information and whatnot. And I think it's very important for us to kind of fully understand. And there's a lot more about this than just this one section. So whenever it does get brought up, I think it's very important to, collect all the information so that way we understand it. Go Straya, what's up? Welcome to the stream. All right, let's get started. So this is about marriage and divorce. So, and it came to pass. So Jesus is leaving Galilee, going to Judea. Everybody's following him. And then the Pharisees. Remember, the Pharisees are those who are following God. Well, they're the ones who are considered holy by the majority of civilians at this time. So, like churchgoers and stuff. But a lot of them are not actually living. They're not following God's rules correctly. So, they have a big problem with Jesus, because the way Jesus is here to illustrate what God meant and intended technically from the beginning, but it got twisted and corrupted and all that stuff. So the Pharisees always keep approaching Jesus and trying to, they're asking questions about topics, which is a good thing, because, at least they're seeking, information. Because, like, you got to seek God with all your heart to even, that's the first step. So, and I'm glad that the Pharisees asked all these questions, because if they never would have asked, then Jesus would never have fully explained half of this stuff. So it's actually a good thing. It helped with his ministry and his teaching. So, all right. So, let's see. Verse 3. The Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Put away means divorce, okay? So, is it okay for a man to divorce his wife for any reason? That's what they're saying. And he answered and said unto them, have ye not read that he had made them in the beginning? So he's talking male and female. He's talking about the creation of God. Back in Genesis 1, chapter 1 and 2, pretty much chapter 2, I think, is when he makes Adam, and then he eventually makes Eve for him. That's why. And verse 5, and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Twain means two, okay? So, obviously, man, female, two people get married, they become one, okay? It's very important to understand this, because a lot of people are really like some people love themselves a little bit too much, or they're self-centered, and they're not willing to become one, like make decisions together, just everyday life, working together as one, treating each other as you would treat, love another as you would love yourself, treat another as you would want done unto you. It's like that bond is like super strong, and it's very important. That's just one advice in relationships, period. So verse 6 is really good. It says, wherefore there are no more than two, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. Okay? So this is the reason why, like, when you get married, the Bible's involved, and God, and, the whole ritual of getting married, the Bible is involved, but it's because God is love, and he joins two together, okay? So it says, therefore God hath joined two together, okay, through marriage, through the verses, during a wedding. No man is to split asunder, means to split apart, okay? So, but that's why it's also very important to, like, take your time with it and date properly, and actually truly fall in love with somebody, in and out, like that, like everything about them, to know for sure that, like, they are the one, okay? Because once you're technically, that's like the first step, because if we rush into it, then there's more likely to be problems, right? If you take it slower, you're likely to see the problems before you fully commit with God. Like, give your vows, okay? Which is like giving your heart, you know, like you're giving your promise. Verse 7, they say unto him, why? Okay, so now the Pharisees are going to go back to Moses because they're trying to contradict, you know, like what he's saying, because they believe, you know, they believe it differently. The way they, well, I'll read this and then I'll explain. They said unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. So it's been misinterpreted because the way they think is, and I read this as I was studying, like, even if the wife would like burn your food, you could divorce her. You could divorce her because like she made a human error. Because if the male was ever displeased, it was okay for him to divorce. That's crazy, right? This is crazy thinking because male is not greater than female. We're all equal. So like for one to be able to have that authority over another is ridiculous. And it's so silly, right? Let me see. I want to make sure you guys have this. You guys can see it. All right. So verse 9, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. Okay, adultery is bad. That's when you it's like you're cheating on your significant other. Because technically you're not supposed to have any sexual relations until you do the whole dating and you know 100% that is the person, and then you proceed with the marriage and all the other stuff that follows along with it. Babies and whatnot, family. And whosoever marrieth her which is put away, so who is already divorced, doth commit adultery. All right, so and then there's a little caption in my Bible. I'm gonna read it. It's on this verse too. So it says, "No fault divorce?" ? It's a question. No fault divorce. In Jesus' day, Pharisees debated how to interpret Old Testament rules concerning divorce, which is what we've been talking about. As usual, they tried to pull Jesus into the dispute. As I told you, they keep approaching him. Good thing they did. A famous rabbi named Hillel taught that a man could divorce his wife if she burned his food, as I mentioned earlier. A stricter school headed by Shammai limited grounds for divorce to marital infidelity. Jesus clearly sided with Shammai, but pointed much deeper beyond the technicalities of divorce of God's original design for marriage. So in verse 9, here he is actually saying that it's okay to divorce because he says except it be for fornication. So so you got to think what love is, right? Think about what marriage is, what love is. It's like, you know, starting a family, having kids, most likely, but being linked together and showing intimacy, okay, sexual relations and stuff. That bond, that closeness, you don't have with anybody else. That's something that's supposed to be special. A lot of times, and nowadays, and as life keeps going on, it gets more messed up. People are like, you know, sleeping around, have a boyfriend or girlfriend every other week, or have 2 or 3 at the same time. Like, they're doing that kind of stuff. You're never going to find intimacy. You're never going to have that true love. You're just lusting after one after another. And usually when that's the case, it's just their looks, okay? And maybe slightly their personality, but marriage and a bond goes way, way, way deeper than that. Because a boyfriend or a girlfriend is like the pre-step of a wife or a husband. Okay, so we got to treat it as such, but nowadays we don't treat it as such, and we get into the habit of like, you know, like obviously it's okay to date many people, shouldn't do it at the same time, but you know, it's okay to keep your options open, but it's important not to approach it correctly and not to get trapped up in lust where you're just, you know, you're indulging in somebody's looks or their body or something like that, because that's gonna what it does is it deters your mind on things that are important, and then you don't actually pay attention. What ends up happening is probably like after a few months, then you actually get to know the person for who they really are, and then you're like, I don't like this person, you know? And then like, so it should never even got to that point if you would slow down and look for what is important from the beginning. Okay. So at least here he says that's like the only time like that it's accepted to be able to divorce. Now, I do think personally, and this there'll be more scripture on this, so I think it'd be important. But as we go on through our Bible studies, I don't know where it's located, but hopefully we do come across it. But there's got to be some exceptions, right? Because when marriage is, remember how I said in the weddings, like the Bible is used, then there's verses, and then there's vows, and then God, you know, the verse says, you know, God now lets, you know, the two to be one, and you like promise on that, right? You're giving your word and you're promising on that. Now, if the person is lying about that, you are not going to know. You're not going to know at the time, okay? Because if somebody's having doubts, but they still get married because they don't, and if you're not a full Christian yet at that time, then you're not being as faithful, you're not being as honest, you're not actually giving your true promise, you know? So, because the only person that holds you accountable is God. You know what I'm saying? And if you are not a Christian, then you don't believe in God. So then who's keeping you accountable? Nobody. So when if you go to sorry, I saw James's. What's up, James? How you doing? So that's why it's important technically to get right with God first, because God is love, right? So like, and if you're not following God, then like it's not true love. Like you might have true lust, or you might like truly like somebody, which is part of lust, but it ain't like true love. Because like true love is not just, it's not just, a lot of people think it's like more like you're just attraction to somebody, like sexually usually, but that's not even close to being the case. So it's just so important to be careful, and it's okay to date for a long time to really get to know somebody. A lot of times people will like say what you want to hear, or they're deceiving. Maybe you're not good at like reading people. If you pay attention, you will know eventually, especially if you have God and you pray about it. The Holy Spirit will help show you signs. Like you'll see the signs. The signs are pretty much already there, but you'll see them more and stuff. But it's so important to take it slow. That's why they say love is patient in the Bible, and that's the reason why it's said like that. And that's so important on why you're supposed to take your time. Why spend 10 years? You know, like I'm not married myself, and I wish I fully knew this and embraced this and did this from the beginning, but I've learned a lot throughout my lifetime, so I'm happy with where I'm at, and it taught me a lot. But I can't even imagine, because I knew a little bit about this, so I can't imagine how it is for other people. But let's say you go like 10 years and you're just living your life and having a good time and this and that, what happens is when you're throwing yourself out there and you're hooking up with a bunch of people and whatnot, you no longer have, you don't have that, I don't know what you would exactly call it, but like that pride, because our bodies are supposed to be for our significant other, as well as like that intimacy. It's supposed to be special, okay? Love and intimacy in marriage is supposed to be special. You're supposed to share it with just like the person that you decide to be with. So when you start to do all that other stuff, you're spoiling it, and you're actually slowly corrupting your mind and your thinking about, so you can't actually feel it the way it's meant to be felt unless you like understand it. Then you get God, and then you have to live by that. You have to change the way you approach it. You know, you can't be doing what you were doing before, because all it is suffering from lust, really, plus like envy because everybody else is doing it, or oh, you know, the celebrity has like, oh, he has a hot wife, you know, I want a hot wife, or like silly stuff like that. So it's not anything to take lightly, because if you take it lightly, there will be problems in your future relationships or your future marriage, because the last thing I think anybody wants is to get married and then divorced. No one really plans to get divorced, but if you don't do it right, it's very likely that divorce will happen, or you'll stay in the marriage and you'll be miserable the whole time, and no one wants that either, right? So it's very important. Take your time and actually do it correctly with the whole dating process and the whole searching from the get-go, so that way divorce never becomes a thing. That's the reason why Jesus says, like, the whole, like, you know, technically you're only supposed to divorce if the other person falls under lust for another, okay? Because like lust is a sin, and we can all sin. Even if we're following God, it can take a split second to fall under whatever sin we suffer from. So if somebody suffers from lust already, but they're following God, and then they get married, if they're going through, you know, whatever reason makes them, when a temptation happens, like a female comes in or whatever, or, you know, or a male, doesn't matter, either or, and then you give in. So then you give into sin, which would be lust, that intimacy and all that stuff, which is supposed to be special, and technically you're only supposed to share it with your partner that you get married to. If you do that, if you commit adultery, fornication with another, you have now broken that bond, okay? So when you break that bond, God says it's okay to get divorced, okay? Now, remember how I said in the very beginning, though, there's probably exceptions, because that is considered if two people are following God and they give their word and their promise to fulfill it, okay? But if people aren't following God and they're just saying the words, but they don't mean the words, it's like telling a kid to say that they're sorry. They're going to say they're sorry, but do they feel it? The question is, do they truly feel sorry? If they don't feel sorry and they're saying they're sorry, well, they're not sorry, okay? So that's the same concept when you're giving your vows. If you don't really truly mean it, you're just doing it because that's part of what you got to say, there will be a problem in the relationship, because unless they do turn to God and then they you know, stay true to everything that God says. So I think that's the biggest reason why a lot of times people have hard time. That's why we have a lot of divorces, and like people are like, oh, but like we were both, you know, like because in the beginning, it's always better in the beginning, right? So when you do get married and stuff, it's like that connection is strong. But if God is not in the center of it, because God is a spirit, God is inside of us. You got to remember that. So, which is going to explain it here soon when there's another good part that actually, it's really soon actually. Yep. It'll be verse 16 and 17. So God is inside of us. So if God is not inside of you when you're doing things, like when you're doing the marriage process, it's doomed to fail. It's doomed to fail. Unless like, I mean, technically, unless two people are doing the same, right? You're both not following God and you get married. Well, you're both living a sinful life. That marriage might not turn into divorce, but you're going to be miserable and you're going to have a lot of problems because of sin in general. Okay? Anybody who's living in sin, there's always downfall to it. Okay? Greed, for example. Okay, so greed, I'll use the easy example of money. So you're always chasing money. You always want more and more and more. Yeah, your first goal and dream stuff is a house and a new car, like a sports car, and you get that. Well, all of a sudden, you're not happy about that. And then all of a sudden, now you got to buy the next thing and now you want a private jet. You get a private jet. Well, you're still not happy. You want to, be an owner of something. So when it comes to greed, you're always suffering from, because like you get the pleasure of it, but it's temporary and then it fades away. So you'll be chasing. Once you've chased everything you can, by then you'll probably be old and you just be like, that's all you did your whole life is like up, down. But same thing with like gluttony. You like food a lot. Well, you eat too much food. What happens? You get obese, right? You get out of shape. Then you have health problems, stuff like that. So like every single sin has its downfall. It's pleasurable in the moment and in spurts, especially in the beginning. But as life goes on, there's so many bad, dire consequences. So it's always really important. The truth is, God has to be the center because God is love and marriage is love and bonding two together. So like a lot of times when people don't have God and they think they love, it's just they have a lot of lust for the other. That's all it is. So they don't see it as such because they don't know any better. Forgive those who do not know. So that's why we're doing a Bible study. So that way we have our knowledge. And then you can make your own decisions, right? Okay. So verse 10. Let me read this out. You have to love God more than sin. Oh yeah. You have to love God more than sin because God doesn't stand for sin. Like God does not. This is what James said. It's so important because, that's why there's no gray area. There's like right, which is God, and then there's wrong, which is from Satan. And there's like to be right, like there's a lot of sin. And we live in a sinful world and God gives Satan power. So it's very important, like it's so hard for us to overcome that. Okay. That's why the Bible is here, and that's why the teachings in the ministry and the preaching is all about God and what he stands for. Because you have to understand that. Like that's the knowledge to understand, to know the truth. You have to know all of that first to even have a chance to be able to receive it and to give in, to receive it, and to follow, because it's a choice, it's a commitment. Okay. Like that's another reason why marriages don't work is because commitment issues. Been there, done that. I've overcome my commitment issues, but a lot of times people have commitment issues because they're self-centered, or fear that they could be making a wrong choice, and they don't want to be obligated and stuck in that choice. So I think you can't get married if you have commitment issues. It wouldn't be right. All right, so this is verse 10. His disciples say unto him, if the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. But he said unto them, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. For there are some... Okay, this word right here, I don't know how to say it. Enochs? It's okay, it's males who remove their testicles so that way they cannot sexually reproduce, and they do it also to take away lust. Okay, these are people who are like technically following God. Like they don't want lust to even, because lust is strong. They don't sin in general is strong, but like lust can be really strong, because it's urges and it's physical, it's in the body, right? So like hormones and stuff. So it's like once you start to lust, it's hard to stop it. So like they would just remove, so they can't lust, and they can't do anything about it even if they did start to. So it's like, it's to help control it, I guess, which it's pretty crazy. but it, hey, whatever you got to do. But it says, for there are some it's such a hard word. I'm gonna call it Enochs. Okay, for there are some Enochs which were so born from their mother's womb, and so they did it at birth. They didn't even have a choice. And then there are some Enochs which were made Enochs of men. Okay, and there are Enochs which have made themselves Enochs. Okay, for the kingdom of heaven sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Okay, so like I said, to each his own. That's what you gotta do to live for God. Like James said, you have to love God more than sin. So like, that's why like you can't do any sin. You can't follow any sin. So like, that's why some people or different religions take drastic measures towards things. Like for example, like over in the Middle East, they force their women to wear head gowns and to cover up everything but their face. I think that's unfair. I think that's a little bit extreme. I get the concept of it, but it's the male's job to be able to handle the lust. It's not the female's job to be ordered to be able to cover up completely if she's uncomfortable, just because a male can't overcome that. Okay? Now, from a female standpoint, it would be wrong, and this goes for males too, it would be wrong to be showing more of your body purposely to try to get another individual to lust after you more. Okay? People want to feel more pretty, or they want to be like, they want to attract the other person. Well, if you're attracting the person with your body, you're attracting them through lust. And I promise you this, if you're attracting them just for your body, you guys don't even know each other. You don't know each other's characters. You don't know each other's morals. You don't know each other's beliefs. You don't know each other's character. Like, none of that stuff. The inner person, the person you have to deal with, their habits, their everything they stand for, which is all what's important. Their body is nothing, like everybody has a body. We don't get to choose how we're born. And, okay, so if you lust after, if you're attracting somebody through lust, okay, that's why girls like show a lot of cleavage and stuff. That's wrong. You shouldn't. Plain and simple. Because that's part of your sexual reproduction. Like, that's what it's for, right? Like, so there are a couple different areas of the body that we cover up for privacy and for love and intimacy, because it's supposed to be special. But like, when you use it to like to try to attract somebody through lust, like all of a sudden that person gets in I always use this explanation, but like all of a sudden somebody gets into a car accident or a fire, they get burnt really badly. Well, all of a sudden they don't look the way they used to look when you were attracted to them. So because you were attracted and brought together through lust to the person, as soon as that body is not the way it used to be, then lust, you're not lusting after that person, but like, and that person suffering from lust. So like, that's like one of their most important things in the law of attraction towards another. They're not doing it for the other reasons, which is actually the correct reasons, which is going to end up, keeping a marriage solid. Lust, no. Don't get me wrong, you should still be attracted to your significant other. Definitely you should be, because you have to be. You have to be physically attracted somehow to your significant other, but it shouldn't be like the top priority, It's because it's not the most important. So that was everything he said about marriage and divorce. I thought that was pretty good. Pretty important. James says, also, can you say your dream from yesterday when you have time? Oh, yeah, I will. Okay. So this is verse 13, chapter 19. It says, Jesus blesses the little children. Oh, basically, I'll just explain it. Some children are trying to come to Jesus. Disciples rebuke them, tell them to go away. And then Jesus said, no. Suffer little children. And then he blessed them. Okay. Because like adults, like this is no time. This is no place for children. That's the way they're looking at it. But Jesus said, I'm here for everybody, young and old. To any who want to listen. And actually it's better for them to listen at a younger age, because it's the same way as, we go to school. We go to school to learn math and science and English or whatever language you speak. And you wouldn't be able to learn how to read and write if you didn't go to school to learn English or like your language. So it's the same process of how important it is to learn the Bible at a young age, because that's how, especially as children, we have a developing mind. Okay. And it's less corrupt. And when I say less corrupt, it's like you're not, it's better to know about sin. So that way, when you do make that choice, when you get put into the situation to make the choice, at least you know that you're making the choice of like right and wrong, instead of just getting trapped into wrong and then not knowing for a long time, and then you suffer from the pleasures and the just you have a habit of that's your lifestyle, and then all of a sudden then you learn about God, and then you're like, oh wow, like I didn't realize how bad like my lifestyle is like in the eyes of God. And then it's even harder to like overcome, but it can be overcome. I promise you it can be overcome. If it doesn't matter how strong the habit is, if you fully commit, remember how I said earlier, it's all about like the full commitment to God. Once you actually make that decision truthfully inside your heart, God will help you with the Holy Spirit to be able to overcome like the bad habits, the sinful habits that you've had prior. So, and it's so strong and it works like 100%. And then even scientists say that it takes about 21 days for a habit to form in general, good or bad, doesn't matter. So over time, things get better. Okay. I think we all can understand that, right? Life gets easier. Like, anything's tough in the beginning. You lose somebody, like, somebody dies. It's hard in the beginning. Somebody, get a divorce. It's hard in the beginning. You lose your job. It's hard in the beginning. Like, you see what I'm saying? Everything's tough in the beginning, but we've all had our ups and downs. So when you hit your down because of something, eventually you overcome it. All right, so here's verse 16. This is really good, okay? This is what I was talking about earlier. So, and behold, okay, so this is the rich young ruler. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do, that I may have eternal life? So he's saying, how do I get into heaven? What good things do I have to do? And then I love what Jesus says here, because it helps so much. He says, and he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep these commandments. We'll talk about the commandments in a second. But how good is that? Because he called him good master, and Jesus is saying, I'm only a good master in your eyes because I follow God. God is inside of me. Like, because God is good. Now God is a spirit, and that's why our body is like considered a temple, is because you let God into your mind and body. Okay, so when you receive God, when you commit, you allow him to be living. You live for God. God is in you. As soon as you break that, as soon as you do one thing wrong that he is unpleased with, he will leave. Like, then you won't have the Holy Spirit guiding you, and you won't be able to hear it, or it'll be a lot more harder to hear it. You start to do more of what you want to do rather than what God wants you to do. Okay? Because remember how I said earlier, like, if you find God later and you've been corrupted, you're going to be battling the things you want, the things that your mind and body crave, rather than like what God stands for, what God craves. God craves everything that's good. He wants you to do things that are of good, nothing to do with sin. So I thought that was really good, because this is from Jesus himself. And we all know Jesus didn't sin. Jesus was pure. So, and that's why like you hear like be Christ-like. It's because like he is our role model. He is what we strive to try to live like. Okay. And if we could achieve that greatness of loyalty and purity, then amazing things can happen. You can do so much. It's you like Jesus let technically God let Peter walk on the water. We talked about it not so long ago. But he allowed him to walk on water through his faith. Like, I was talking about this earlier to my family and stuff, but like, it's so important on how strong faith has to be. Like, any doubt, any worry, any doubt, like just the smallest, even if you shrug it off right away, but like you think it, like you kind of think it, and you slightly believe that doubt or that worry, like something might not work out because of science or because whatever you're told or whatever the heck, then yeah, it's not going to work. Faith has to be 100%. But like, and God says, with the faith of just a mustard seed, you can move mountains. It's like, obviously, if it's God's will and if it needs to be done, God will let it work and happen through you. But you have to have that 100% faith to even have a chance to get that far. So like, amazing things can happen, and like that's why there's miracles all the time. If you research some miracles and stuff, like that's why they do happen. And of course, anybody who doubts or is a non-believer, they're going to try to contradict it and then make some kind of explanation of, oh, it only happened because of this, and then they're going to come up with probabilities of 0.001% chance of it happening and some silly stuff like that, right? They're going to like, because they don't see it for what it really is. All right. Okay, so here are the commandments that Jesus says at the time. So these are for sure, because this is pretty good, because this guy is strictly asking Jesus, like, what do I exactly have to do to go to heaven? Like, exactly. And he's talking to Jesus precisely, and Jesus talking to this man. So it's pretty good. He saith unto him, which Jesus said, thou shalt not murder. Okay. Murder means kill. Okay. You shall not kill. Period. It doesn't say, there's no exceptions there. Okay. That's why I think it's like it's a tough situation given life. give just understanding like life here in general, because like wars and fighting, you know, we always want to think that like there's good and bad, but you don't really know who is good and who is bad, and you don't really fully understand on like who and why they're doing what. Does that make sense? You might be told some things, or people see things and then they assume exactly that they know why that the other person's doing what they're doing, but they don't fully know unless you're that person, or that person like sits down with you and explains exactly why they do what they do and they're being honest. That's the only way you're gonna know. So like, to know who, like when countries are fighting, to know like who's in the right and who's in the wrong is very, very hard to even know. And there might still be bad on both sides. And not to mention like, because a lot of times, what are wars fought over? They're fought over land. How many times have countries rewrote their borders? And this is why I don't like flags. This is why I don't like countries. It creates division. When you create division, then we're no longer more together. Does that make sense? And if the more we are split, the more we have a harder time to, unless everybody understood it and followed God, then there could be countries and divisions, but too many people are like too quick to stereotype or to, you know, because, you know, let's say I'm in this country and then like my next door neighbor is in a different country. We're only like 40 feet apart, but because I'm born here and they're born there, if the countries didn't like each other, I'm not supposed to like my neighbor because of that. That doesn't make any sense. Like, we're like the same people with, you know. So like that's why I'm not a big fan of like, thank you if you serve and protect, but you're just following orders from a higher up. And then like, think about it from a higher up, like if they're not fighting for the right reason and they send you in, well, you still got to do your job, and then you're murdering for the wrong reason. And still, I think love overcomes, like God overcomes Satan, right? God beats Satan. So you don't have to like kill to win, to beat it. It's just, you just don't. There's other ways, or there's like, or God will do powerful things like he did in the past in some of God's armies in the Old Testament. There was, I forget exactly the numbers, but I'll give you an example. It was like 300 people, 300 army compared to like 10,000. They were scared and they didn't think they were going to win, obviously, because they're outnumbered. And God was telling the leader, he said, go, it's okay, go into battle, I'll be there with you, you will win this, like it's fine. So when they went, when they did line up, the enemy saw hundreds of thousands of, it was no 300, it was like 300,000 they saw like fire chariots and stuff. God made it so that way the enemy who was fighting for Satan and sin for the wrong reasons, they visually saw that they were outnumbered, which created fear in them, which allowed them to lose the battle. I don't even know if they ended up fighting or retreating, but it allowed, see how God will intervene in the situation? You don't even have to get to the point of actually fighting or to beat your opponent. Or if destruction needs to happen, God will do it. I'll give you two more examples. The walls of Jericho, when they went around Jericho a bunch of times doing the horn, because God told them to do it, because that's how the walls were going to come down. They didn't have to physically take down the walls. God did it. So, but it's all about following God and then listening and doing as he says to overcome the other side. And then the third example I was going to say was David and Goliath. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers. Well, they decided to do one-on-one, okay? The generals decided to do like one-on-one. The reason why they even brought it up is because they had Goliath. Goliath was a huge giant, super strong, probably won hundreds of battles. So he is a great warrior. They had faith in him that he could win. And then David was trying to run away, but God kept trying to chase him down and say, hey, no, like I need you to go. Don't be scared. I got you, you know. And he's like, all you need is a stone. That's what Jesus decided to use in this situation. He goes, you got a slingshot, pick up some stones. Threw just one stone at him and killed him. Was it the stone that killed him, or was it God that killed him? It was God. It's the same, but God threw David, okay? Same thing through God threw the trumpet for the Jericho, for the walls. Same thing through God through the person who, you know, the outnumbered, and he went to battle and still lined up, and God showed that they were outnumbered. So God will do the miracle, but you got to have the faith when it comes to war and battle. Okay, so that's how that works. Thou shalt not murder, because that's like. Now, I'll give one more example since it's a pretty big topic. Here in the United States, we have each state is allowed to have their own, and I know there's some countries out there that also do this, but you have like death penalties. Okay, so if somebody takes a life, they give up their life. Now, that's not right. It's not right because those who voted for that to happen, they're guilty. They're not committing the murder, but they allowed the murder to happen because their vote is what mattered and what counted. Okay, so they are guilty of those who are murdered because of their judgment on the law. So, but do I think if you murder somebody, I think you should be locked up for life. Like, you should be in prison for the rest of your life. Freedom should not be free if you think that it's okay to take another person's life, because they deserve to live and have freedom also. It's that simple. So I think that's the way it should be. And I know how people get really emotional and strong about that, but if you think that it's okay, like it's like even like the pedophiles and stuff, people are very like I'm all for protecting the kids, but at the same time, it's not okay to murder a pedophile just because they hurt a kid. You know what I'm saying? And for you to think that that's okay, because even to have it as a thought is like doing it. So if you have the thought that it's okay, then you're saying it's okay to kill another person for their wrongdoing. No matter what it is. Doesn't matter if they're a pedophile. Doesn't matter if they stole a Snickers. Doesn't matter if they broke in your house. Doesn't matter if they, if you're in war. Doesn't matter. It's just that plain and simple. So it's so important just to understand, like, thou shalt not murder. And there is no, oh, well, you can murder in this situation, in this situation, in this situation. He doesn't say that, right? So it's important for us to just, you can't add what you want to it, okay? If he wanted us to look at it differently, he would state that. He would say it. All right? The next one, thou shalt not commit adultery, okay? So you're not. So once you have that bond with marriage, which we were talking about, that's why it's so important to keep it. It's so important to commit to the marriage and not do adultery, because adultery is considered one of the strong commandments that will keep you out of heaven. This guy is strictly asking, what will get me to heaven? He's telling what will not get him to heaven. So that's pretty important. That's why it's important to not be lusting, like find a relationship through lust. Don't be going around just looking at people's faces and bodies and then that's who you're gonna hook up with. You better get to know the person and dig deeper. Like, don't get me wrong, that can make you like go towards them, like approach them and maybe ask them out on a date or talk to on the phone or whatever. But don't let it be the main source of like why you're trying to get to know them. Thou shalt not steal. Okay. And this goes same thing with a murder. If you steal, you steal. It could be a Snickers, it could be a car. They're both in eyes of God the same. That individual stole. It was not theirs and they took. Okay? So if you steal anything and you don't think it's a big deal because it was small in your eyes, but it was still big in God's eyes, and it will stop you. It will stop you from getting to heaven, according to everything that Jesus is telling this man. Thou shalt not bear false witness. This is called lying. If you tell a fib, some people are, oh, it's a little fib, or, you know, and I stand so true to this. This is why some people don't like me. This is why I probably have a lot of haters. But I speak truth, even if it's not what they exactly want to hear. And I'll call people out on what they, if something is happening, instead of lying about it, or like just, I have a hard time just like not saying things. If something's wrong, I have a hard time just keeping my mouth shut. But I will speak truth, and I don't stand for liars. Like, you know, so like I have lied in my life, don't get me wrong. But it always like eats me up, and then like I feel really bad about it, and then like I end up, you know, going to that person and letting them know the truth, because I don't want to like, I don't want to live with that lie to like exist forever, because I should have never done it in the first place. And a lot of times people lie for their own benefit. You know, maybe, you know, it gets them their job, or it gets them a relationship. It gets them like you get that girl because you lied to her about something, whatever. And if you just tell the truth and whatever the concept, like whatever does happen, it's for the better. Like in the end, it'll be for the better. Because, you know, if I had to lie about something on my resume to get a job, if I didn't lie about it and I got rejected, I'd probably find a different job or a better job without having to lie. It's just we get so wrapped up in that because technically you're not letting God be in control. You're trying to be in control. So, thou shalt not lie, bear false witness. Okay. 19, honor thy father and thy mother. Okay. So, you should listen to your mother and father if it's right and correct. Once you know better, if they're telling you to do things that are wrong, then you don't listen to them. You can still respect them as being your mother and father. They you know, they raised you, they put you in this world. You should always respect them for that, because they didn't, technically they should, you know, everybody should take care of their kids because you decided to have the kid, even if it was an accident. Okay. This is why abortion is like completely wrong, because abortion is considered murder. Remember how we were talking earlier, murder? And people don't understand this. A lot of people like to try to defend abortion. You're taking a living being, okay? You're killing something that's living, period. You decided, a lot of times, majority of the abortions are because they aren't ready or something. Well, you were never supposed to have sex before you were even married to begin with. So you did it wrong, the whole relationship, the whole concept. So therefore, it's your consequence. It's the consequence of your action. And then you're going to kill a whole different, like something that should be brought into this world because of your action. That doesn't give you the right to kill them. No, not at all. And then some people say, well, what if they get raped? Okay, that's like a very, very small chance. Like, okay, rape does happen, but you don't get pregnant every time you get raped either. So like that percentage is super, super, super low. And in reality, I still don't think you're supposed to have the abortion. Yeah, you might not be ready for it. Yeah, it sucks. But, you know, who knows? You might end up loving that kid more than ever, and it might, like, if you have God, you know, if you have God, like, there's so much that can happen. Like, maybe there would have been maybe there would have been an angel that would have stopped the rape that happened in the first place. If you would have been 100% committed with God to begin with. I've heard of a miracle where this guy was waiting outside of like a grocery store, and he was waiting for a woman, or he was waiting for somebody. Like I forget exactly what he did. He either robbed them or he committed some crime on the person. And a lady walked out, and he didn't do anything to her. He did the next woman who came out. Okay. And when that woman found out, she ended up going and talking to him and asked him, like in court or whatever, like, why didn't you do it to me? Why did you do it to her? And he goes, because when you came out, there was 2 men with you. And there was not 2 men with her. She was alone. But God gave 2 angels or figures in his eyes as 2 men. So God protected her in that moment when something bad was going to happen to her. And she probably, and for that to happen, you have to have 100% faith. Just like how Peter fell through the water. As soon as he started falling through the water, as he was walking on water, as soon as he screamed for Jesus, Jesus grabbed his hand. What did he say? Ye of little faith. When Jesus was sleeping on the boat a different time and there was a bad storm, disciples woke him up to stop the storm. He said, ye with little faith. Last time in the last dream, when Jesus came back and there was a woman came to him and said, my sister's possessed with a demon. Your 2 disciples couldn't help. Can you help? He rebuked the demon. The 2 disciples said, Jesus, why didn't it work? He said, ye of little faith. Every single time that something doesn't work correctly, what does he say? Ye of little faith. Remember how I said you have to have 100% faith to be able for God to work in you, through you? That's the whole point. Like, that's the only way it works. If you don't have that, then God can't work. You can't expect God to work if you don't have 100% faith. So you don't be doubtful in that if you can't do the 100% faith. And if you have any doubt or worry, you don't have 100% faith. Okay? Got to keep working on it. Got to keep studying. What does he say? Seek God with all your heart. That's why the Bible is so important. That's why it's important to, like, the knowledge, to stick with it. That's why there's the Sabbath day, to make sure that we maintain, to put time aside, to make sure that we do give our attention to God. What is fasting? Fasting is, not eating, just to show God that you're serious about, and when you fast, you're supposed to, like, also be seeking God during this time. And it's just it's a show of seriousness. Okay? All of this stuff I'm saying all together is to strengthen faith for God to work the way he's supposed to. Okay? So honor thy mother and father. Now, like, if they're in the wrong, like, you can still respect somebody, but you don't have to listen to them. If you're being taught wrong, then you have to know better. Because forgive them, for they do not know, or they choose to not live that way. They're so wrapped up in their sin, they would rather live and die pleasurable, happy, what they think is happy. I would say temporary happiness. here in this world with their sin, and then that's all they got. As soon as they die, it'll be a rude awakening for them, and they're gonna regret having that mindset, that mentality. Next one, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I think this is a pretty tough one for everybody. Just like how I said, if I lived here in a different country, was over there, and we didn't like each other, like that would be considered my neighbor. I have neighbors who have kids over here who are loud as heck. Still love them. Still annoying, but like they're probably used to it. I don't like it, but they don't have like the mindset mentality of like telling their kids to be a little bit more quieter for the respect of their neighbors. But just because of that doesn't mean I hate my neighbors, right? Like you still gotta love people. They just a lot of times when people hate each other, or like there's arguments or something, it's because of misunderstanding. Okay. People just, whether it be their knowledge of the situation, or they're unaware of the situation, or they don't like think about the different consequences or the different aspects, variables of like the effects it could have on things that they don't think of, other people, other situations. So like a lot of times, conflict just happens because of misinterpretation, like misunderstanding. Okay. That's why it's always important to like confront and talk and just be honest, be open, be honest, be genuine. And then a lot of times problems will get fixed that way. You believe it or not. Believe it or not, that's usually how things get fixed. So yep, those are the commandments. Are you still there, James? I'll explain my story here in just as soon as we get done with this chapter. We're almost done. All right, so then he says, let's see. Jesus said, okay, the young man saith unto him, all these things I have kept from my youth up. So he's saying, I've done none of these. He said, what do I lack? He goes, Jesus said unto him, if thou wilt be perfect and go and sell, he said, and then he's like, if you're perfect like you say you are, go and sell that thou hast and give it to the poor, and thou shalt have treasures in heaven, and come follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful. He ran away, for he had great possessions. So this guy was a rich man. That was one of his problems. Earlier in Matthew, it says, you cannot worship God and worship Mormon, which translates to money. Okay, you cannot love money and love God. Period. You can want a good life, obviously. You can want a good life, but when you indulge in materialistic stuff, or just like, obviously it's usually materialistic stuff, because it's what money stands for. Okay, it's how you use money. It's like if you're using money just like to buy things, to like, a lot of times people live above their means. Okay, the poorest person can be as happy as the richest person, and like you can be content with not having much, because all you need is you don't need much. You really don't. You just need clothes and a house and food. That's it. Okay, so when you start to the more you get away from that, like, then the more you start to like wants and needs. What I listed are needs, everything else becomes a want. But what we do is we evolve our lifestyle as we get more money. And then like rap, that's why a lot of rap is horrible, because they're all talking about what they have and what you don't have, or like how they're like showing off, or they're too prideful of, I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Like none of it matters. Like, because you should have been just as content when you're at the bottom, and you didn't need the money and the stuff to like
boast yourself or like make yourself feel better. Like, so you had to, so you know what I'm saying? Like, that's saying like if you don't have a certain amount of money, you're not gonna be happy. Well, okay, so like that's crazy, right? Because like that's crazy. So it's just like it's important to, because Jesus knew that this guy had money and that's what was holding him back. So he gives a list of everything and then he says, okay, give everything you have to the poor. So like, did Jesus mean like probably literally give everything? No. But give a lot? Yeah. Did he want to give any? No. But that's like how powerful that is. I think a lot of people suffer from money. When you suffer from money, it's literally suffering from it always resorts to a 7 deadly sins. It's greed. Okay? Greed. Remember how we were talking about wars earlier and like countries and how a lot of that is greed through land or power. People want control. So that's also a form of greed. Okay? So that's why like when I said like that's why it's hard to know if you should be fighting like in a war or not. Like technically nowadays I wouldn't fight for any country, to be honest. I don't think, cause there's always no country in this world is 100% based on just good leaders. Like God, leaders who are following God, plain and simple. Like they're not 100% godly. Like they don't have God in their hearts. So you can't follow a leader who's not following God. Like just plain and simple. You'd be fighting for the wrong reasons. It's all for whatever they think in the moment of the time, for whatever reason. And if they're not 100% with God, then they're not following exactly what God would want them to do. So like different situations and stuff, it's just like, it's awful. And it's way out of hand now because of like time. It used to be a lot more simplistic way back then, but as technology and things evolved and more separation and more division and more sin, the more harder it is to like, it's not so much black and white. It's like people are always going to bring up these gray areas and stuff. Let me see. I'm almost done here. All right. Verse 23. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. Now I want you guys to pay very close attention to what I'm about to say next, what Jesus is about to say next. Now, verse 24, and again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. So tell me, can a camel fit through that? No. So if it's easier for a camel to fit through that, what makes you think that a rich man can make it to heaven? You know how? He's got to give up everything. He's got to give up all that money and that stuff that he spent his whole life gathering because he idolized it, to be able to, because it's the commitment in your heart to bring God in and to live for what God stands for. And God stands for that. So you'd have to give up what you idolize. That's what offerings are. A lot of times it's just giving up, to give up, what you idolize, like what you dwell in. And if you're not allowed, if you can't put God before that, then God will not be in your life. You would, a lot of times people might like hope and try and trick themselves, and then they have a hard time and they don't realize why they don't think God's working. It's because you never even had God 100% to begin with, because you were having commitment issues. That's what it is. It's commitment issues. You're not committed to him. You're still committed to whatever you idolize. God says there shall be no other gods before me. Like that's why, like, money. That's why he emphasizes money, as like an issue. And a lot of times it's because what money can buy you. It's like, because if you have enough money, you can pretty much get anything in this world, right? So I thought that was very powerful. That analogy of a camel going through an eye of a needle for a rich man to be able to make it to the kingdom of heaven, like, that's crazy. That's so, like, now I think God could bless some people with money if, most likely, if they were already probably didn't have it, because like if you're already dwelling and idolizing it before, like, you'd have to like change your whole lifestyle and then keep giving. But I can see God giving money to people who are fully following him for the greater good, because they're gonna do what they need. They're gonna do what God wants them to do with that money. Okay, God trusts and knows what they're gonna do, so he would be willing to help them out in that regards. I could see like that happening, because you can't just say like every poor person, like you can't say like every rich person is like can't have God, like, in a way, you know, because the main thing is where their heart is and like what they're doing with it, like, because a lot of times that's what ends up happening is people live above their means, so then they start getting a lot of wants, but like their wants in their head and their brain and their mentality become what they think are needs, but they were never needs and they never are needs, period. But their mindset gets like changed because their lifestyle changes, the things that they bring in and whatnot. Okay, so 25, when his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, just like I am right now, like I said, saying, who then can we be? Then they said, who then can be saved? like that's how crazy it is. That's what I'm saying. Like, no rich man, like, it's easier for a camel to go through a needle. Jesus says this, verse 26, but Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Remember I said you have to commit to God and then do his willing, and I explained all those different scenarios of like how that would work. That's why and how it can work. 27, then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, ye have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have thereof? And Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And every one that hath forsaken houses of brethren, or sister, or father, or mother, wife, children, lands, of my name's sake, shall receive an 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first, which we're about to be talking about soon, about that, the first and last. It'll help explain that very, very soon. But he says, you know, for his name's sake, for my name's sake. So like living for him and what he stands for. That's what it always comes down to. And that's why it's so important to know the Bible, because no matter what you think or assume or heard through maybe a false teaching or interpretation, it matters on what is in this Bible, in these words, because nothing outside of that matters. Okay? Nothing else matters except for black and white in the Bible and red. Red is what Jesus says. All right. So before we get to chapter 20, so we're about halfway done. Before we get to chapter 20, James, all right. So in my gaming stream that I do, we were talking a little bit about the Bible study in the stream. He had a question. He asked me, have I ever had a dream? Like, has God ever like shown me like dreams or a vision? Okay. There's one that stands out for sure recently, not so long ago, probably like a year ago. I've had other like small dreams, more so when I was probably younger because I was more in tune with God at the time. When I was like 16, 17, I fell away from God and I struggled a lot throughout my life with sin eventually, but at times I would still be intrigued to want to know the truth. And God did show me some things during that time, of like technically how God showed me how to research and know and look into what is of this world and like technically the sinful corruption that's happening worldwide, and it's been happening for forever technically, but how some of the dark corrupt are in power to this day and continue to have power, and to and that really, and I think the biggest reason why he allowed that is because that's what I needed to solidify my thinking of the truth, because I was forced. When I say forced, it's because like at a young age, like mom, dad tells you to go to church, you're going to church. You don't got a choice, right? So I was brought up in church, at a young age where like I felt like I was forced to just only know and understand that. So it's like I wanted to know more about the world and like other things that might kind of contradict the Bible in a way. And he helped show me how to research and understand, so that way like and it would always resort back to the Bible, and like there like it the like just be, it's but the more I could see the evil, because I already knew better, the more I could see the evil and sin through what was happening, it's like it shows you how real Satan is and how real sin is. And then that really opens up your eyes on being like, wow, if sin is this real, then like God's got to be that real, like plain and simple. So he did do that. So the dream that I had like a year ago was, so I started getting, more in tune with God, and I was seeking God, and he was, and I was asking for signs, and he was showing me so many different powerful signs. And what ended up happening was I was going to sleep, and like I think I fully have grasped the idea of like how strong faith has to be. I didn't realize how strong it has to be for God to work and stuff. But I knew it had to be strong. And when I was pretty in tune, and okay, so I have a cousin of mine, who he's a little bit older than me by a year or two, and we were all brought up in church, and he tended to be a little bit of a troublemaker and stuff. And I felt bad for him because I didn't want to see him to go to hell. I didn't like want to see him not, lose God. I didn't want to see him live a sinful lifestyle and stuff. So I felt bad about that, and there'd be times when I was young where like I would like be praying or cry, like at, like felt bad. There was two of my cousins that were like that, one younger, one older. But in this dream, my older cousin's with me. Okay. So the beginning of the dream that I can remember, or vision, I would say, is I was in a room, and there was a beautiful woman in front of me, and she was like trying to convince me to like listen to her, to like, it was just it I just felt I felt that I was trying to be like convinced, like I was being tricked. So I felt like I shouldn't listen. Okay. So as she's trying to like convince me or whatever, I can't even remember like what she was trying to convince me to do or whatever. But I just knew like I was supposed to reject her. She was lying, she was being deceiving. So I was telling her no, like it's not gonna happen, whatever. Every single time I had rebuked her, she started getting more and more angry. She started to get like mean, started to get evil, then she started to change formation. She like turned into like a vicious female like witch. Okay. Like real dark, maybe like some stuff coming out of her back. Like it was pretty crazy. But she just transformed to like a beautiful female human being into like this like nasty, evil, powerful witch, it looked like. And after that happened, all of a sudden she's gone, and my older cousin is right next to me. And there's nothing but glass. Okay, there's nothing but glass windows. And when you look through the glass, there was a field of corn that was chopped down, so it was already harvested. And a Jeep comes with a guy with a gun, like an AK-47 or something. And he started to shoot the windows, but he started from like the far side. He started shooting at the windows. And as he was getting closer to us, my cousin was getting scared and nervous. And I said, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay." As the guy was shooting, as soon as he got right to us, his gun jammed up. He couldn't shoot no more. And then he threw down like, and then like, so he couldn't. And then so like right then and there, it was like, I knew that it was all about faith. Like it was the faith that like, it was gonna be okay. Like I had no fear. I had no fear whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, it's like I was trusting God. And then all of a sudden, another female comes in another Jeep, and she has like a minigun. So it's even more scary, right? And then she starts to, and then like, I think in the dream, like I started to get like, so she starts to shoot the glass and right at us, and it started to hit, and it started to crack. The glass was still holding it, stopping it, but it was starting, but visually it was like slowly shattering. And after so much it started to, I woke up. But it's that concept of how strong faith has to be, and it was probably my fear and slightly lack of faith at that moment of time on why I woke up, because I was too scared to know what else was going to happen, because it looked like the glass was about to break. But it was like that dream was from God to show me like how like it started to get me to realize on like how faith works and how strong it really is, like how God works, because like God can only work through that faith, right? Which is miracles, gun jamming up, glass stopping bullets, Remember that story I told, that testimony of that girl walking out? True story. Like two guys, the guy saw two guys with her. Same thing. It's like the miracles can happen. You don't know how or what or why. That's up to God. But it's the faith that has to be there. Okay? I was talking to this is when I was in the I was on a dating app meeting different women. Just getting to know them and talking to them. It was a Christian mingle, so like other Christians. And I was talking to this girl. She's from like Brazil, and I wasn't sure why I met her. Like, obviously, I found her attractive and like just talk to her, get to know her. And I mean, she had to translate everything too because she spoke Portuguese. She was slowly learning English, but we had a great conversation like shortly after, because it was like a month, or not a month, a week. It was like within the week of, I think it was a couple days. I think it was like 1 or 2 days after my dream. We just started talking about the Bible and stuff, and she mentioned Jezebel, and I did not know anything about Jezebel. I started to look it up and research it, and Jezebel is she's like the evil version of lust and fertility. Like she's like, okay, so like sinful lust and like the body, sexual lust and all that stuff. She's like the queen of it. Okay? She's like the demon of it. She used to be, I'm pretty sure in Israel, she used to be one of she was like the queen, but it wasn't so, I'm pretty positive, like God didn't want her to be the queen, but like he went with her and then she became the queen. So like that leader, that king didn't listen to God. So then like, and then she ended up like corrupting Israel or like the nation. So like she has a history of like, when she was a human being, she has a history of like corruption and evilness of like what she stands for, and then like later on she is like a demon who, that's what she stands for. And that is who I saw in my dream. That woman who was in front of me, who turned into an evil witch as I rejected her, like her true colors showed. So like Jezebel, and I didn't realize this until she showed me about Jezebel and stuff, and then I started doing more research about it, and then I was like, wow. I was like, that's who was in my dream. Like, so like I had Jezebel in front of me, rejecting her, she got crazy, and then somebody who I would like to see saved, obviously, somebody I'm close to, and then the faith, like that was my dream and vision, James. So it was pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. And that happened about a year ago. And then I told the girl from Brazil, I was like, now I know the reason why we met. I said, if none ever comes of anything else, I said, God put me in front, like God connected us together for this reason. She didn't fully understand, like, because she didn't have the dream that I did, right? But as soon as all that happened, it was so strong. I was like, wow. It's crazy, like how dots connect. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are the odds and chances of just like randomly talking to her and then like about the whole Bible, and she brings up that, like she brings up Jezebel. Like, dude, Jezebel's only mentioned so many times in the Bible, period. Like, this is like less than 1% we're talking here. Way less than 1%. And then I had the dream 2 days ago, and then like the next time I go to talk to her, we'd start, and then she helped my knowledge and understanding of the truth. Like, it's pretty bizarre. Yeah, it was a scary dream in a way, but it was like an awesome dream. Like, it's what I needed. And that's how God works. God's like a personal God. So like when you ask for like signs and stuff and whatnot, he speaks to people differently because people perceive and have different understandings and knowledge and struggle with different things. So God will do what he needs to for that person. So, yep, that's what it was. All right, so we're going to do chapter 20 here, and I'm going to try to kind of do this a little bit quicker. I know we're kind of getting a little bit lost on time here. All right, so now this is, but it's all good. It's all really good. I don't know about you guys, but I do enjoy understanding and learning more about the Bible as I go through. I don't mind spending a little bit extra time. Today is the Sabbath day anyways, right? So we're supposed to. Let's see. This is the worker in the vineyard. Okay. For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder which went out every morning. Okay. I'm going to explain this, and then I'm going to touch up on a couple of the verses. We'll do it like that. Okay. So, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who so he has a vineyard. Okay? The vineyard has to be tended to, right? He needs laborers. He needs workers. So he goes and finds some workers. They agree. That they're going to work for a penny a day. He said, hey, you want to work in my vineyard? Yes. How much do you want to get paid? Give us a penny. We'll do it. Penny a day, we'll work in your vineyard. So he did. He realized, he went to the marketplace. He sees more people who are just standing around. And he goes, would you like to work? They said, yeah. They said, okay. Whatever you want, I'll give you. And they went their way and they started working. He did it again on the 6th hour and the 9th hour. Meanwhile, those other people are still working. He did same thing. You want to go work? Go work. I'll pay you whatever you want at the end. Okay? So, he does this for a little while. And then, about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing. Okay. They say unto him, because no man hath hired us. So more people, they couldn't find a job. He goes, I got a vineyard. We still need more people. You want to work? I'll pay you whatever you need. Whatever you want. Verse 8. So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard saith unto his steward, bring in the workers, and I'll give them their pay. Okay? Beginning from the last to the first. Okay? And when they came, he paid the first person the 11th hour, right? They received every man a penny. But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more, because likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house. They were upset, saying, These last have only worked 1 hour, where hast made them equal. You're making them equal to us, which was born in burden in the heat of the day. We worked a lot harder. We worked a lot longer, right? But the person who hired them, the household owner, the vineyard owner, said, but he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didn't you agree for a penny a day? Take that thine is, and go thy way. I will give unto this last even as unto thee. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil because I am good? So that last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Okay. So, I'm going to read this little caption that's in my Bible. It says, Jesus' story makes little economic sense, which was his point. Exactly. He is giving a parable about grace. And you can't calculate the grace of God like you can a day's wage. We receive it as a gift from God, not as something we work hard to earn. The person who comes to God at the end of life, like the robber who was on the cross, enjoys the same ultimate benefit as someone who follows God from early childhood. Jealousy of another's unfair rewards can take the joy from your own. Now think about that for a second. A lot of times people are saying, God, why are you blessing this person, or why are you giving these people, whatever you see that they're getting, you want it too, or you want blessings. God, why are you giving them more blessings than you're giving me, or something like that? God has a reason and a purpose for everything, and I promise you right now, if one of the biggest problems is the faith. If you don't have 100% and you're not seeking God with all your heart, well, that's part of the reason why. That's a big reason maybe why you're not getting as much as you think you should. Luke Boy, what's up? Welcome to stream. So it's so important to understand God's grace, that he's willing to, as long as you're willing to commit and give everything, then he's willing to do whatever is necessary for that person. And everybody's different, so you can't compare one to another. Okay, it's all personal, and because when you start to look at others and what they have, or how God's treating others or whatever, you're thinking about favoritism. You're thinking about maybe doubt, or you're envy. Envy is a sin. You're kind of dwelling and wanting what they have. So which is part of what is said there, jealousy of another's. Okay, seems unfair, but it's not. Because in the end, technically we all receive the ultimate prize, which would be heaven. And then obviously there's treasures in heavens, and he explains that but that's through your fruit and your labor and stuff like that. Because technically, even if God gives them a lot here in this world, but you're doing God's work and will, it here in this world it might seem like you don't have much, but up in heaven you might have more. But that's if you are doing it for the right reason. If you're just following God because you're hoping that your life will get better, if you're doing it just try to get more out of this world, he's probably not going to do it, because you're already committed. You're not even committed to him. You're doing it for the wrong reason. Because it's all about committing to God for what he stands for the truth of what good is and how it is against evil. So that is the concept of God itself, and that's why it's if you don't I want to say indulge in the concept of how great and awesome what that is, what he stands for, and hate sin, then that's how it all starts. It's more so loving good and the right lifestyle than it is the opposite of the stuff he doesn't stand for. And that's why he's so harsh, because he didn't make any of that stuff. He doesn't want to associate with any of that. So if you can't commit over to the way, and I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, because they dwell upon something, one sinful thing or something, usually more. They have a hard time giving it up, fully committing and giving it up, trying to okay, I'm gonna live my lifestyle and I gotta get rid of this and this because God would be unpleased with it. And a lot of times we'll hold on to something. We'll try to work ourselves, work God in there with it, and it's it doesn't really work like that. That's why it's so hard, and that's why people struggle. It's why people suffer. It's and then like God ain't really working, and then they have doubts, and then they're like, and then they might fall, like then they might like run away and like never try again. But it's because they never did it right to begin with. So that was a pretty good parable. Luke boy, I'm doing really good. How about yourself? We're almost done here. We got let's see. Jesus is gonna foretell his death here in a second for the first time. Then we have the ambition of James and John, and then healing of 2 blind men. About a half a chapter. Let's go. All right, so verse 17. So I'm just gonna read all of this. It's 3 verses. And Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took 12 disciples apart in the way, and said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, the Pharisees, okay? And they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles to mock and to scourge and to crucify him, and the 3rd day he shall rise again. So he's telling them that they're like, he's letting them know, Son of Man, right? He's saying Jesus. He always refers to him as Son of Man. He says, I'm gonna be betrayed. But see, I love how he always says this, because if you think about it, Jesus is the Son of Man, right? Because like he's God's son, and God is a spirit. God stands for good. So whenever he is talking about himself, it's the concept of what he stands for. They don't hate him because he's Jesus. They hate him because of what he stands for. It's what he says. It's what he does. But that's what he lives for. He lives for God, right? So it's the priests and stuff hate the Son of Man. And then, which is crazy because they're supposed to be holy. And they condemn him to death, which is crazy because thou shalt not murder. And they know this and they think this, right? They know the 10 Commandments. They obey, kind of, not really. They think it's okay to say, we want him to die, but we can't kill him. We're going to give it over to the Gentiles because they will kill him. They're okay with killing people. By them giving Jesus over there to die makes them just as guilty. Remember how we were talking about earlier about like murder and wars, stuff like that? The death penalty? It's the same concept. If you give in, or if you say like it's okay to do it, even though you're not the one who's doing it, you're just as guilty. So that's why it's very important to be very, because it's really where your mind is and where your heart is on a particular situation. That is what you got to look at. That's like the key of to know like where you stand on things, and that's what you got to look at, because and don't ignore it. Do not ignore it, because we can all have strong opinions about some of the sinful stuff that people do, and we get so wrapped up in the sinful thing that they do that we stereotype them, where like we hate that group of people, as we talked earlier, like the pedophiles. Like, yes, their sin is horrible, but I can't say that like they need to die. Okay. Just like the murderer on the cross that was next to Jesus, like Jesus forgave him. So like, but you know why he forgave him? Because he was truly sorry. He fully committed. So that's not to say that like that person can't. That's why it's important not to kill him, because like, yes, lock him up for life in prison. You take a life, you ruin a life, you don't have freedom no more. But hopefully in prison, they can still, find God. So that way their life here is not put to waste. Because the only reason why we are here in the world and the only reason why we exist is for this reason. It's a test. It's important. That's the only thing it is. It's a battle for our soul. We get too wrapped up and lose track of and don't understand that, because it's not taught. It's only taught in the Bible. It's taught in And I feel like sometimes a lot of preachers don't really emphasize that, because to understand why we exist is pretty important, because that's like probably like the number one important question like that will always exist. Like how do humans start, and what's the purpose of us? But the Bible explains to us and shows us, that this is really just a test, because eventually this test will end, and Revelations explains that, and I do think that we are getting closer to that. Every day does seem like it is getting closer, but every single time corruption, sin gets way out of hand, God always intervened. Talked about it with Moses, Noah, Lot, Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay. So it's happened many different times in the past history. And, after a certain time when the whole world is kind of like that, which it seems like that's kind of like what's happening, then it's no longer cities and nations that are just corrupt. It's like the world's corrupt. And that is probably like the final straw. Like if you're God and earth, right? If you're God and earth and the humans are running the whole earth, but it's all corrupt, there's like no more hope, right? Like in a way. Like, because technically, sin will always condemn and try to shut down or kill God. Plain and simple. Whether that be killing Christians who are claiming that they follow God. This happens in different countries and stuff. People, like Christians, are dying just because of their faith, which ain't right. In China, if you get funded by the government, like if you're living off their funds, you're not allowed to have a picture of Jesus. You have to have a picture of their like emperor or whatever. Like, so they're being controlled and told on who and what they can worship based on like their living situation, which is wrong. So like more and more every day, God is being targeted and attacked, and it's only a matter of time where it's going to reach home, wherever you live. And I live in the United States, and the United States was the last country founded on Christian beliefs. So if the last country that's founded on Christian beliefs is having problems, then I can't imagine how bad it is in other countries who have been around for such a long time. All it takes is one corrupt leader. In the United States, a little bit different, because I think there's a huge group of them, and I think they've been working together for a long time. Corporations, it's a lot bigger than you guys think, but it's because they've been suffering from greed, and they've been trying to get control and power, not just of their countries, but of the world. And like that's part of money and corporations and finances, and because if you can control all of that, you can control everybody. Because what is to say that like, and it's less than 1%, but I'll just say 1%. What's to say 1% of people can tell and control 99% of people and tell them what to do? Isn't that crazy? Like we're all brought up in the same world. That no one should be able to be, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to be the God. They're trying to be God of you. They're trying to command you. They're trying to tell you what to do. And more every day, especially with everything that's going on, it seems like that's what's happening. So it's like things are not heading in a good direction. And it's, but in the end, if you have faith and you understand and you have the knowledge and you follow God, He tells us it's going to happen. So it's like, it's bound to happen. Obviously, I hope it doesn't happen in my lifetime, because like, I don't want all the chaos and bad stuff to happen in my lifetime if I could choose, if I could help it. But if it does happen, I'm ready. And if like, because I know what is to come after this, and I know how important it is to like, I would rather live. God says He's going to make a new world, a new earth, the way He intended to, and that's how He says it, because he wasn't planning on all this crap to happen, you guys. But Satan, Lucifer up in heaven, at the time when he was making Earth and stuff, he thought he was better. He had pride. He suffered from pride, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. Because he was the most beautiful angel. So when God was absent, he was like the most sought. He was the most powerful. He was the most beautiful. And the other angels started to treat him as such. And then he liked it, and then he wanted more. He wanted what God had. So when God came back, God was upset with that. God cast him to earth, and now here we are. Now we have to give God the one thing he can't give himself, and that's true obedience and love. That's the test. And it's so important to understand all that whole concept, because that's all we're living in is a test, and there is no chance for failure. Like, there's a big chance for failure. It's like you can do 90. You can't be 99%. You have to try to live 100%. And that's why that's why people have such a hard time with it. It's because they already suffer and dwell in some sin, and they don't want to give it up. They have bad habits. That's their lifestyle. They might be surrounded by certain people, friends, family. If they're living a sinful life and all corrupt and stuff, and you're hanging around them all the time, yeah, you might love them, but you can't be hanging around that. You can't be accepting it. You can't, you know what I'm saying? You have to have a whole different mindset on it. So that's kind of like all of that in a nutshell. And because Jesus earlier mentioned in Matthew, he even said, as they come after me, they will come after you as well. So and every day you can see it more and more. And it's so crazy because this was written like thousands and thousands of years ago, and the more and more you understand it and see it, then the more you can then you can really see it in this world, in this time. And then you're like, wow, this is true. This stuff is no joke. You can't make this stuff up. To make this stuff up and for it to still be true is bizarre. But it's all about understanding good and evil and seeing it and understanding sin. Because then you really, really see it as things are happening in this world. All right, so let's continue. This is the ambition of James and John, who are 2 of his disciples. Verse 20. Then came the mother Zebedee's children with their 2 sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, what wilt thou? She saith unto him, grant that these 2 of my sons may sit on the right and on the left in thy kingdom. So she wants her 2 sons to sit next to Jesus. But Jesus answered and said this, ye not know what ye ask. He's saying you don't even know what you're really asking. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? They say unto him, we are able. He's asking the 2 guys, do you think you're worthy to do, are you worthy enough to do and say everything that I do? Okay. Are you committed? And 23, he saith unto them, ye shall indeed drink of my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. So he's saying, he says, you will receive some of the stuff that I also receive. But then he says this, but to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give. He said, I can't choose that. But it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared for my Father. So if God wants that to be done, it'll happen. But that's not my choice to be made. And when the 10 heard it, the 10 other disciples, when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the 2 brethren, which is jealousy, hatred, hold on, let me give you the exact definition here. anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. Okay? So, the 10 disciples are like you it's the same thing as like the workers in the vineyard. Okay? They're now they're like saying, well, are we not worthy to be sitting at your left and right? You know, like they're a little bit angry about it. Verse 25, but Jesus called them unto him and said, ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and that they are great, exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. Okay? He's referring to God and himself. Because he says, okay, let me back up a little bit. But Jesus called unto them, he says, Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they are great, exercise authority upon them. He's talking about authority. He's talking about people owning, people like what God does, okay? What God does. Control. Telling what to do. Telling what you should do, okay? But obviously, like, Gentiles and, like, kings and queens, they tell the others what to do. Like, and then verse 26 reiterates it, saying, but it shall not be so among you, okay? But whosoever will be great among you, God is great above him, right? Let him be your minister. And whoever so like he's saying, okay, verse 27, and whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant, even as the Son of Man, even as Jesus came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. So he's saying, just as I give up my life for God to obey him and do what he wants, that's the same concept that you must have. Okay? It's not to choose, or it's not to pick and choose like what you want. Okay? Just like how James and John and his mother decided that like they wanted extra privilege to be right next to. It's like, it's the same concept of like, and Jesus said, it's not up to me. It's up to God. Everything's up to God. So he's just reiterating, like, you have to understand that you're just being you're being obedient. You're being a follower of God, not of anything else. Got to be a servant, you know. And then you gotta give your life as a ransom for many. Like, you gotta give your life, and it's true. Like, because, you know, you gotta give up your lifestyle. You have to give up sin. You have to give up many things, and maybe sometimes you'll lose friends, family, what have you, in the process, and that's okay, because you have to. It's, you know, if that's the pathway it takes because you're following God, then that's what has to be done. And it's not for you to choose. It's not for you to choose. Because if we could choose, we'd be like, oh, we want to follow God and we want to keep this job. We want to keep my money. I want to keep these friends. I want to keep this lifestyle. That's not how it works. So it's just so important to understand that. Oh, and then like extreme measures, like we might have to give up our life for obeying God. Some people who are trying to, you know, sometimes like preachers are getting shut down. Social medias are trying to restrict things, stuff like that. And more and more every day, it's getting more and more tough. Because why? Because sin is trying to control, and sin and control and greed and power, they have no space for God. They don't have no belief in God. So God contradicts what they're trying to do and trying to achieve. So God is like a nail on their side, or like a whatever you say. I forget this expression, but like a pin in their side or whatever. So like they know this and they don't like it and it bothers them. So like, because if anything, they want more followers. They want more control. They want control of everybody, not just most. They want control of everybody. So, because that's how powerful greed is. It never stops. You have greed for money, you're going to stop. You got $1, then you want $2. You got $2, now you want $5. You got $5, now you want $10. It never stops. It always keeps growing until you have it all. Everything that you can achieve until the day you die. That's how it is. And it's like the expression of like hustle. It's okay to still hustle, but like a lot of times people think hustling is like referring to like making money and like keep going, right? Like just always wanting more. And it's not a good thing. All right, so a couple more verses, small little story. Healing of 2 blind men. He goes to Jericho. He has a big group following. There's 2 blind men that are sitting on the side. They're crying out to Jesus, "Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou son of David." The multitude, the people that are with Jesus, told him to like, be quiet, hold your peace. But then they said it again. "Have mercy on us, O Lord." They want to be heard. And Jesus stood still. On verse 32. And Jesus stood still and called them and said, What will ye that I shall do unto you? Like, what do you want me to do? And they said unto the Lord, that our eyes may be open. Can you open our eyes? Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him. This is a small little miracle at the very end there. So that's going to wrap it up. James, I appreciate it. So hopefully that helped out a little bit. Hopefully it's intriguing. Pretty good information, knowledge there, I think. So next, let's see. Let me look at how long the next chapters are. I'll tell you what we'll be doing next if you want to even read it ahead of time. Let's see. We'll try to do 1 to 2 chapters depending on the length. So 21. We'll do 21 and 22. And 21, let's see. I'll tell you the topics it says in my Bible. The triumphal entry. I have no idea what that is. Cleansing of the temple. That might be probably talking maybe about our bodies and stuff. Because that's why you may have heard like our body's supposed to be a temple. Because like God's not going to stay anywhere where it's not holy. That's what we got to understand. That's why it's so important to like treat our body as a temple, inside and out. The barren fig tree. Not 100% sure. Jesus' authority challenged. The parable of the 2 sons. The parable of the husband. There's going to be out to get Jesus. Jesus confronts his enemies. Ooh. That's like that's a couple paragraphs in my Bible that's extra. That might be really good, actually. Man, 21's pretty long. And I like to talk a lot because I explain a lot. You know what? Let's just go with 21. Yeah, let's go with 21 because I can probably do 22 and 23 together. Because I have a big thing. Here, I'll show you. So like right here, this right here is like extra, and it talks about like all of this. So we're going to we'll go over that as well. So we'll just do 21, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to study, a lot to talk about. So take care, you guys. Much love. Stay safe. God bless, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care.